Obama IRS is at it again. Well, it was like a couple years ago. There was like a sunset in the law that on the statute of limitations on going back for your taxes to 10 years. And, basically it's 3 years on audits unless there's wrongdoing. They can go further, than that if it's wrongdoing. But they've also encompassed something else. They said, like, if your ancestors owed anything on, like, disability or taxes, or your ancestors owed anything to the government, or they were paid by the government in error for something, you will be liable for that. And they'll take it out of your refund. And supposedly there's 400,000 Americans that are being affected by that. 400,000. Now, I want to put out here that this is not a rumor. This is not like something that's made up or anything. It's actually going on. I don't know how to... Well, you know what? I guess anybody can do anything as long as they can get away with it, right? But what's happening is... Well, I'm going to tell you this. It's actually going to cost them more money to try to get this money from all these Americans' ancestors, the current surviving generation, and get the money from them. It's going to actually cost the government more money. Because, say for instance, there was a payment of, $800 in 1964 for some disability payments, and you shouldn't have got them, and blah, 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 and you try to take it away from the person now. Well, they're going to try to take it away from the person's refund, but I don't know. You know what it's going to do? It's going to be a backlash, because it's going to come back. It's like karma's a bitch, man. People are going to get so anti-government, so pissed off, that it's going to wind up costing the government a lot more money. And, I'm not like trying to see the system fall apart here like some people want to see the system fall apart. And I realize, there's a lot of crap that's wrong with everything here, but, it looks like things are probably really coming to critical mass now, Critical mass. In other words, I put out some stuff before, and I put it out, it was Paul Volcker talking about currency crisis going to begin, not the bottom's going to fall out, but begin on March or April of 2014. About a year and a half, it was roughly a year and a half from the time he said it. David Walker, he used to be the chief accountant of the United States. It's like the informal title, chief accountant of the U.S. government. He gives it around an approximate time frame. He says if problems weren't addressed adequately. But I guess, none of the problems were addressed adequately. So I'm thinking is that, probably what's going on here is that critical mass is starting now. And this is evidence of critical mass. That, they're looking to grab pennies anywhere they can. You know what I mean? Now, I'm going to say this. There's a lot of waste in just transporting money from the private sector to the government to run the government. Just in a mechanism to do that. This is the age-old thing. It's been said like this for a gazillion years. With the speed of computers, they just make the tax code more complicated, right? It couldn't be as complicated before. With the speed of computers, let's just make it more complicated. But anyway, if you just, like Stephen Forbes was an advocate of this. It was a national flat tax or national sales tax. Steve Forbes, he was an advocate of this. Now, I agree with that type of stuff. I think it just ought to be a national sales tax, and the hell with the tax code altogether. Now, I know there's a whole bunch of things they could say about, that taxes the poor more and all that. I don't think so, because, you're looking at the tax rate of the wealthy. The higher up you go, the higher the tax rate is. But, there's so many other ways you can legally do things where you're not going to pay that much in taxes as a percentage of your income, even when you have high income. Because of the complexity of the tax code, there's, it's not like you're doing anything wrong. It's all by law, but that's just how it is. And if you got the money to pay the experts to, set things up as they should be, you're going to pay a lot less taxes. So, I mean, actually, if it was like a flat national sales tax, the wealthy would probably have to pay, they'd be paying more than what they'd be paying now. It really would be. But the big advantage would be in the efficiency of collection. In other words, you don't need like you don't need as many people in the government, figuring out, are all the forms right, and, to check everything, and, for deductions, for how you set up, and, matching this and matching that, and all this kind of stuff. You just wouldn't need as much of that. It would be a lot easier to enforce. And on the other side of it, it would be a lot easier for people individually to figure out the taxes, because they'd be paid at the time of sale, right? And on top of that, well, I don't want to knock it because I'm in this profession more or less. The accounting profession, actually in the the professionals that are the tax professionals in the private sector, they've been doing very well for the last decade, and part of that reason is the complexity of the tax code. It's one of the jobs out there in a private sector that actually has done good over the last 5 or 10 years because of the complexity of the tax sector. That they would actually get hurt, but the thing is, I guess it would go into something else. It would go into something else. I don't know, but maybe there'd be a lot more people available to restore classic cars instead of compiling taxes. I don't know. I mean, to me, I look at compiling taxes as almost like a necessary evil. But let's get rid of that necessary evil. It's really unnecessary evil if it's just a flat national sales tax. And it looks like the government is desperate for money. So what they're doing is they're going back to the ancestors of people. They're also saying, they can even do it. Well, if it was an individual and they knew about something an individual did 20, 30 years ago, they would have already had it resolved by now. So, I mean, when you're talking about the statute of limitations being over at a certain period of time, I mean, if there's no record of, say, an individual that's alive today getting disability that they shouldn't have gotten back, 30 years ago or something like that, that issue would have been resolved. But they're going after the parents and grandparents of these people, which is ludicrous. If they're going to do that, actually you're opening up a can of worms, because if you want to go back generations, black people could say, my great-great-grandfather or great-great whatever, how many generations it was back, was a slave and was used by this person, and I demand reparations for that. The American Indian could say, oh, my land was stolen from me. I want Manhattan back. Here's some beads. Give me my Manhattan back, So, I mean, when they start bringing up all this type of stuff, it's like, if you're going to go back like that, I mean, you can go all the way back to who the hell knows what. And it could happen all across the world, too, The world has changed many times over. And, the way I look at it is like, you want to go forward, and it looks like the government's in deep doo-doo, probably getting into cash crunch. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's what's going on. Maybe they got a cash crunch to run the government. Maybe they just vote up more debt and all this kind of garbage, but, I don't know. Who the hell's going to keep buying all the U.S. debt forever and ever and ever to run all these programs? So they're looking for money. What I'm looking at it, though, is efficiency is probably your big answer. And just going into a national sales tax would make things more efficient. There's a lot of wasted... in other words, the whole mission of freaking collecting taxes is just to transport a certain slice out of the private sector to run the government, which regulates... in other words, the government's supposed to work for the people, by the people, of the people, all that type of stuff. And you need a government, a limited government up to a point, right? I mean, you do need a government. But to transport, so much money out of the private sector to the government itself to run it should not be a super complex endeavor that requires, all these super skilled professionals and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. I think it's just a waste. It is a waste. I mean, Be nice if all these professionals were restoring classic cars, for instance. You know, doing something better, in my opinion. But I don't know. That's just how I think. So, I mean, you know, or maybe engineering bridges or something. I don't know. Whatever. If you're using your mind a lot. But, you know, it's like they're actually, right now, this is going to create such a backlash against the government. It's probably going to backfire big time because it's going to make people uncooperative. And it's, you know, when you say that, you know, the story gets out that so-and-so had their tax return refund garnished for their grandparents' disability check from 1963, and that story gets out, it's going to make, you know, several hundred people pissed off at the government, and it's not going to make it cheaper for the government. You know what I mean? It's bad business all the way around. Now, I think Steve Forbes is right about this national sales tax, or the, you know, I wouldn't even say the flat tax. I'd just say the national sales tax. And the hell with it. Maybe he needs to advertise it a little bit more. Maybe like his dad used to do. Malcolm Forbes used to ride around in a Harley. Steve Forbes don't do that. Maybe Steve Forbes needs to get a Harley, drive around with a couple flags on there, and, you know, abolish the IRS, you know, the sales tax, national sales tax, flat tax, and have a gang do circles around the White House with open pipes all day until they come to their senses or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm just being ludicrous, but who the hell knows? I mean, really, it's like the word's got to get out, but you got to kind of work together on this stuff. You can't be totally antagonistic about every damn thing because some idiot came up with an idea, you know. It's not the whole government that's come up with this stupid idea. I don't know, maybe it was Obama. I don't know. I mean, everybody's, who the hell knows? It probably wasn't Obama. I don't know. Actually, you know, I'd start thinking about with Obama himself. You know, the guy, in reality, the guy is controlled. You know? He's controlled. There's too many people controlling the president anyway, so I mean, I don't even know, you know, what the hell he's involved in personally or what. I have no idea. No idea at all. But I do know that if I was a person, you know, my grandfather or grandmother got a Social Security check in error back in 1960s or something, and these guys came after me for that, I'd be like, get the hell out of here, man. It's bullshit. Get the hell out of here, man. That's crazy. So, they're doing that, though. They're doing that. They're doing that. Unbelievable. Now, I mean, it's not affecting most Americans. I think they estimated it's going to be 400,000 Americans that are affected by that. So, it's a small percentage of the population. But everybody should get mad at that because it's unjust. It's unjust. You know? I think these guys, I think the government actually is maybe, you know, it's a sign that they're having problems, man. I don't know. So, I don't know, maybe Obama needs to do like Jimmy Carter used to do. Turn the lights down in the White House and try to save a little electricity. You know, that type of stuff, right? Anyway. But, you know, I would be all for, like, I mean, some of this, you know, some of the doing the tax stuff could be kind of fun. It's like a Rubik's Cube, you know. We can do this, you can do that, you can put this there and there. But it's, you know, when you start thinking about it, it's in other words, you know, if you're going to put something together, you want to accomplish something, you want to go the most direct route. And the most direct route for just collecting taxes would be the national sales tax. I know all the 50 arguments against it, but in reality, despite all the excuses against it, because actually the rich, the wealthy people argue against it, you know, that, well, there's arguments out there saying that the wealthy people won't get taxed as much because people are looking at the tax code and, like, if you make this much money, it's this percentage and all that type of stuff. Actuality, the wealthy would actually get taxed more because they know how to set up their income in different ways where they don't actually pay that bracket they're in. They don't really pay that bracket they're in. You know, and it's all legal. You know? So, I mean, that's just how it is. That's just how it is. That is the tax code. Because the tax code isn't just that simple tax code table that you see. There's a lot more involved in it. And, you know, if you have your money, especially, you know, I guess with the wealthy, though, really, when they make out, they're usually, it's on capital gains. And the tax rate on capital gains is pretty low, you know. So that's another thing, too. So anyway, this is coming up, and it's just another thing that the Obama administration did. Actually, they did something else. I think it was in January 2013. They let the clause sunset on like with the 1099 and miscellaneous. What the hell was that thing? I forgot what it was. But like if you sell a house, I mean if you have a house repossessed by the bank because you owe $200,000 on it, and the appraisal value is now at $70,000. They will give you a 1099 miscellaneous, whatever, I forgot what kind of C or whatever it is. I don't know what's on a C. But it's that you are you got income for the difference between the loan and the new appraisal value, even though you didn't get any money, and then you get taxed on that on top of it. Now, there used to be a forgiveness of debt clause in there for the mortgages because of all the collapse of the housing industry, but that was allowed to sunset. That was another thing he did, too. In 2014, January 1st, 2014. So, you know, I got a video out on that. I'll actually point to the link on that. So what I'm thinking is, you know, I don't know, maybe government collapse is coming pretty soon. Who knows? I mean, maybe that's fear-mongering on my part. I don't know. I mean, it's been talked about a lot, but these to me are when they start getting desperate maneuvers like this, trying to get taxes from your ancestors, that's telling me something's really wrong. I mean, it's a guess. It's a guess on my part, but think about it. If they're doing some kind of measure like this, that's telling you something's really wrong. Something's coming up. If they got to do that to keep the government afloat, go after people for their ancestors' back taxes, that's telling you something's going on here that's not good. You know, like just using common sense. Just using common sense. So, actually, like I said, I just want to repeat that again. I'd like to see it where they just go to a flat national sales tax, and you know, I just think that's a lot more efficient because they wouldn't have to pay as many people in the private sector and in the government sector to compile and collect taxes. It would be a lot easier, and that would save a lot of money in itself. And all the time, you know, then these people could do other productive things. I don't know, restore classic cars, right? I don't know, just kidding, but something else that would be productive. So, that's another indication that something's going on. It's not good. And I don't know, I'm not sure, like, when the big collapse is going to come or if it's going to come or not, but that is a solid indication something's not good. You know, if they got to do that, there's something wrong. Something wrong.